Wheels Through Time houses hundreds of the rarest motorcycles anywhere on the planet. 375 all-American made machines right here inside the building, and each and every one of them is held in running and operating condition. Today we're going to be highlighting one of the rarest motorcycles in the building, the 1917 Henderson 24-hour endurance racer. So right now we're standing in the museum's new exhibit titled The King of Old Motorcycles, highlighting our founder, Dale Wachsler. Now, many of you guys know this exhibit was funded entirely by you guys through our annual raffle and our lifetime membership program. So if you haven't heard about those programs, check out our website, visit Wheels Through Time's Facebook page, Instagram page. You learn all about it. The raffle here, 1937 Harley-Davidson Knuckleheads, going off in November. It's our biggest fundraiser. And then our annual membership program, or our lifetime membership program, for folks that really want to step up and help support the museum's mission. Nobody like our lifetime members. So we're incredibly grateful for you guys for keeping this mission alive. So at hand, guys, the 1917 Henderson 24-hour endurance racer. So much special about this machine, and it ties into the museum collection here in such a special way. It's one of my favorite bikes. My dad, Dale, always said he never had any favorites, but I would be willing to bet this was probably one of them. His old saying, he said, "My favorite motorcycle is the one that I rode last." Incidentally, he probably rode this machine more than any of the other motorcycles inside the museum. So one of the favorites by many here at the museum. Like I said, the only known racing Henderson in the world today, period. Now, most of the racing of this era, board track racing, some dirt track racing. This was a machine of a different type of racing altogether. I'll tell you about that real shortly. So in 1912, Henderson entered the American motorcycle marketplace with its brand new 4-cylinder inline motorcycle and would change the industry completely. Quickly became known as the Duesenbergs, or the Cadillacs of the American motorcycle, really the classiest motorcycles on the planet right up through the current day. Specifically inline 4-cylinder motorcycles, 1,000 cc's, incredibly smooth, even torque, easy to start, easy to maintain, and just really some of the best motorcycles ever produced, really from their onset. So Henderson started in Detroit in 12, and for 5 years through 1917 they would operate right there at their base in Detroit. So Tom and Will Henderson, a couple brothers, started the company and would really revolutionize the industry. It didn't take long for other companies to key in on what they were doing. One in specific, Ignace Schwinn of bicycle fame. Schwinn at the time owned Excelsior, and by 1918 Schwinn sees what's happening at Henderson and ends up buying the company and continues to produce Henderson motorcycles through their close in 1931. So a lot of folks have never heard of the Henderson motorcycle. Here at the museum, we've got several examples. I think there are 6 different Hendersons, prototype examples, racing examples, standard road models. This one here is among the most special anywhere. So this exact motorcycle was hand-built, produced in 1917 by Henderson for this fella Malwin Jones to run 24 hours at the board track in Cincinnati. So in 1917, Henderson changed their game up altogether and started producing 3-speed motorcycles. So we always say there's many points at which the term modern motorcycles have been redefined, and that transmission is one of the times where motorcycles take a great leap forward. Harley, Indian, and Excelsior were early to the game, 1915. Henderson was a couple years late, but when they debuted the 3-speed transmission in 1917, it brought their bike to whole new capabilities. So in order for them to show off those capabilities, Henderson went straight to the efforts of setting records. So first thing, 3 flags record, Canada to Mexico. Second thing they did was set out to do the Alan Bedell coast-to-coast record. That was an LA to New York trip, re-breaking Cannonball Baker's run. Alan Bedell completed the run in 7 days and 11 hours. Henderson also produced this motorcycle, this one that we're looking at right now, to produce, or to re-break the 24-hour endurance record that was set at the time. Now, in 1917, Harley-Davidson was just pushing their new 1917 engine and actually ran 1,175 miles in 24 hours. So Henderson built this machine to jump out, break that record. As it turns out, Maldwin ended up crashing the bike about halfway through the run. They never completed it, and the record continued to stand for a few more years. So one of the very few attempts that Henderson failed at proving the merits of their machine. So as I understand the story, Maldwin was on time to break the record, and they were doing this at a board track in Cincinnati. I think it was a 2-mile track, and they were lighting the track with these big barrels of fuel, basically using it like a candle. And in the middle of the night, somebody moved one of those barrels of fuel. Maldwin ended up brushing up against the wall and went down, wasn't able to continue the run. So the bike was relatively unharmed, but mangled enough not to be able to continue. So as it would be, this machine laid up for 70 plus years until my dad found it at the antique motorcycle swap meet in Davenport, Iowa, and purchased the bike from a good friend of his, David Leitner. So incredibly honored to have this motorcycle here. It's such a key and integral piece of American racing history and Henderson motorcycle history. Like I said, no racing Hendersons other than this one exist today. Now this bike, very, very special history right here at the museum. Now, when my dad found this motorcycle, he knew he wanted to restore it. He had a good friend of his, Steve Hunsinger, jump right in on the restoration, and those two bounced ideas back and forth enough that they both started getting some wild ideas, and they decided to set out to re-break another record that was set the same year on a very similar bike. Now, you heard me mention Alan Bedell, endurance racer, military guy. Alan actually set out from Los Angeles in 1917 to re-break Cannonball Baker's run coast to coast, LA to New York, and completed the run in 7 days and 11 hours. My dad and Steve teamed up with another good pal of theirs, Stuart Munger, restored this motorcycle and set out, I think it was June 4th, 1997, and ran this motorcycle 3,300 plus miles from LA to New York, started at the Peterson Automotive Museum, ended in Times Square on the Today Show in 6 days and 4 hours. So he clipped a day off the run. Pretty impressive. Now he had modern roads, he had gas stations around every corner, maybe a few advantages there, comfy hotel beds at night, but at the same time, incredible proof of what the machine is really capable of. At the time, bike was 80 plus years old, and to make that coast-to-coast run with relatively no problems. I think he had a flat tire running through Nebraska or Kansas somewhere. Other than that, the bike performed pretty much flawlessly. We're going to crank this thing up here right now, and you guys are going to hear it bark. There's no Henderson in the world that sounds like this machine. We actually had Henderson guru Mark Hill go through the bike just recently and just kind of inspect everything. The clutch was getting a little bit weak, so Mark actually tidied up the clutch a little bit. They made this new stainless exhaust. Up here, this is the original exhaust pipe that ran the 24-hour run. It's the original pipe that my dad ran on the coast-to-coast run. He always credited that with his hearing going so bad, although from what I understand, it's hereditary. So the run, guys, LA to New York, yeah, June 5th, 97, and they raised right at $60,000 for Grand National Dirt Track Racing. So big fundraiser. My dad was always hugely passionate about dirt track racing, and they used this motorcycle where folks could donate by the mile, and they ended up raising quite a bit of money for dirt track racing. So without further ado, guys, we're going to fire this thing up and you can hear it go. I'll tell you a few more special things about the bike. One of the things a lot of people notice when they see this machine for the first time, they look at that carburetor hanging way out the right side, and it's completely impractical for running down the road, but at the same time the performance is unmatched. So traditionally, the Henderson manifold hung, or carburetor hung right back here below the seat. Long distance to the front cylinder, and it's a long distance in a 180-degree curve to the rear cylinder. What this special manifold does, keep in mind, only manifold like this in the world. What this special manifold does is split the difference and gives a lot more volume to each cylinder. So we actually, the AMA Museum, when my dad was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2019, The AMA Museum dug through some of their records and they found the original drawing for this manifold. So pretty incredible piece of history that tied it all back together. So some really special stuff going on in the lower end. It's got a special cam, a special crank and flywheel, extra cam supports inside the engine. Nothing like this motor anywhere in the world. One of the other things you notice are these monster wide gas tanks. Traditionally, these Hendersons had tiny little skinny tanks. 24-hour run, this thing's got to hold the fuel. So they made these big, I think they're 7-gallon gas tanks, quick fill gas caps, special tank levers in order to get the levers out for that wider gas tank, and one special motorcycle. So starting procedure on this thing, pretty easy. It's got a Kickstarter, Henderson's fire right up, half the bore, half the stroke, twice as many chances to get it going, I always say. So traditionally easy starters. Now, one of our favorite ways to start the bike is by spinning that rear wheel. So I like to put the bike in second gear and give it a choke or two. So what do we got here? Spin that rear wheel over a little bit and then flick it off, and we ought to be running in no time. This thing makes pretty incredible sound. Listen to that baby purr. What a motorcycle. Oh my goodness, there's nothing smoother than a Detroit-built Henderson, 1000 cc's, 3-speed. These bikes, or this particular bike, capable of probably 85 miles an hour. When he did the coast-to-coast run, super smooth, running 55 and 60 almost all the way across the country. And just one of the most special bikes inside of the museum. You'll never see another racing motorcycle under the Henderson name anywhere in the world. Now that's the thing about Wheels Through Time, is what you see inside the building here, you can't see anywhere else in the world. Hundreds of the rarest motorcycles anywhere on the planet, and we're preserving the history for you guys to enjoy. Now remember, you guys help keep us going. If you get a chance, check out our annual raffle. This November, we're giving away a 37 Harley-Davidson Knucklehead Bobber. Incredibly cool machine, ready to run down the road. One lucky winner is going to be taking that thing home in no time. Now, if you also get a chance, check out our lifetime membership. Our lifetime members, now we've got over 1,500 members right here at the museum that help keep us going. I hope you guys are able to look into it and join the ranks. So without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So make sure you tune in next time. We got all sorts of more great content coming your way. 1917 Henderson 24-hour endurance racer, one of the rarest motorcycles in the world. Make sure you're subscribed to see more.